This isn't addressed to anyone in particular. Or maybe it's addressed to all of you. I haven't decided yet. By the time I finish writing it, I might know. For 4 years, you called it My Little Project. Some of you said it with love, which I want to acknowledge, because I think you need to hear that I know the difference. My mother said it with love. She'd ask how the little project was going the way she'd ask about a houseplant, warm, fond, not expecting a complicated answer. I don't think she knew how much space I'd stopped giving her inside the real answer. That's not her fault. I stopped offering it because offering it had started to cost more than I had. My uncle called it the craft stuff. Once at Thanksgiving, in the middle of a conversation about something else entirely, as though it was a detail too small to require its own sentence. My brother, and I want to be careful here, because I know he'll read this eventually, and I want to be accurate rather than unkind. My brother called it a hobby in front of his friends at his birthday party 2 years ago. He smiled when he said it, not a mean smile, a certain smile. The smile of someone who has already filed a thing away and doesn't expect to revisit the filing. I've thought about that smile more than I've thought about most things. What I didn't tell any of you because I had learned by then that defending things before they existed only gave you more surface to push against. By the end of year 2, I had wholesale accounts with retailers in 3 states. By year 3, I was in a licensing conversation with a hotel group that has properties in 11 cities. By year 4, a journalist from a magazine, the kind that lives in airport newsstands and doctors' waiting rooms and the checkout lines of the grocery store where several of you shop, reached out because someone had mentioned my studio in a piece about independent makers, and she wanted to know if I'd be interested in a longer feature. I said yes. I scheduled the interview for a Tuesday. I told no one. The photographer came and spent 3 hours in the studio. She moved things around and then put them back almost exactly as they were, which I appreciated. The journalist asked about origin stories, and I gave her the real one. The first year of losses. The credit card I don't like to think about. The particular loneliness of believing in something that no one around you has decided to believe in yet. I didn't name names. There was no version of this where naming names would have made me feel better rather than smaller. I didn't know when the issue would come out. These things move on their own schedule. I found out the way I found out a lot of things in my family, which is sideways and by accident. Aunt Carol. And I say this with genuine affection, because Carol is not a complicated person, and that is one of her best qualities. Aunt Carol was at the airport. She saw the newsstand. She photographed the cover because she thought it looked like the kind of thing I made, which it did because it was. She sent it to the family group chat with the message, "Isn't this the kind of thing Nora makes?" 2 question marks, one of which I think was an accident. She did not notice my name in the cover line. She did not connect the studio photograph on page 47 to the studio she'd stood in twice for Christmas orders. She had simply seen a thing and shared it, the way Carol does, without the pause between noticing and sending, that most of us have learned to build in. The messages came in over the course of an evening. I sat at my kitchen table and read them in order. My brother first, short, which I respected more than if it had been long. My mother, who had clearly rewritten her message at least once, because it had the rhythm of something that had been through more than one draft. My uncle sent a thumbs-up amend 4 minutes later an actual sentence, which from him is significant. 3 cousins. A family friend who had once told me that handmade goods were a hard market, which is true, and which had not been offered as encouragement. They all found different routes to the same destination, which was, "I see you now." Not one of them said, "I should have seen you before." I don't think they noticed the absence of that sentence. I noticed it enough for everyone. I read every message. I made tea. I stood at the kitchen window for a while, looking at the street, at nothing, at the particular quality of an evening that has become something you'll remember. I didn't feel what I expected to feel. There was no triumph. There was something that might have been relief, and something that was definitely grief, and underneath both of those, a tiredness that had been there so long I'd stopped recognizing it as tiredness and started mistaking it for personality. I did not reply to any of the messages. Not that night. Not the following morning. I want to be precise about what that silence is, because I've thought about it carefully. It isn't punishment. I'm not interested in punishment. It's more that I've spent 4 years walking toward a door, and I'm through it now. And I find that I don't need to turn around. The people behind me can see where I went. The door is still open, but I'm not standing in it waiting anymore. I was in the studio by 6:30 the next morning. The magazine was on my work table, not propped up, just lying there, the way any other material lies there, useful until it isn't. I had 3 new wholesale inquiries in my inbox. The hotel call was Thursday. The wax was already at temperature. The work was exactly what it had always been. That's the thing none of you ever quite understood. There was never a version of this where the work changed when the recognition came. The work was the point. It was always the point. The recognition just meant I no longer had to explain that to anyone. And I find, somewhat to my own surprise, that I'm not particularly interested in explaining anything anymore. That's all this was, really. Just me finally putting that down in writing. For no one. For all of you. I still haven't decided.